You were aware of the 2 attacks at the mission facility in Benghazi.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Morrell in his book states that there was 20 attacks on that facility. Are you familiar with the other 18?
There were 2 that we thought rose to the level of being serious.
Were you familiar with the other 18?
I'm not aware of 18 others. And I would point out, and I'm sure that former Deputy Director Morrell made this point when he was testifying, the CIA stayed in Libya. The CIA had a much bigger presence than the State Department, despite the overall decline in stability. Some might argue, actually, because of the overall decline in stability, it was thought to be even more important for the CIA to stay there, and they also did not believe that their facility would be the subject of a deadly attack either, because I think sometimes, sometimes the discussion gets pulled together when really we had Chris and Sean dying at the State Department compound, which we are discussing, and we had our other 2 deaths of Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty at the CIA annex.
Reclaiming my time for just a minute, and I do appreciate that. But if you talk to the CIA contractors that were at the annex and you ask them how they were armed and equipped, and then if you would or could talk to the diplomatic security agents that were at the facility, I think you will see that there was a big, big difference in the equipment that they had to protect themselves. But you knew of the 2, what you call major incidents, but you don't recollect the other 18 that Mr. Morrell says happened. How many instances would it have taken you to say, hey, we need to look at the security over there? Would it have been 3 major instances, 30 instances, 40 instances, 50 instances? How many instances would you have been made aware of that would have made you say, hey, I don't care what anybody else says, we're going to protect our people. Chris Stevens is a good friend of mine. We're going to look after him. How many would it have taken?
Well, Congressman, of course, I made it abundantly clear that we had to do everything we could to protect our people. What I did not and do not believe any secretary should do was to substitute my judgment from thousands of miles away for the judgment of the security professionals who made the decisions about what kind of security would be provided. And I know that sounds somewhat hard to understand, but we have a process, and the experts who I have the greatest confidence in, and who had been through so many difficult positions, because practically all of them had rotated through Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Yemen, other places. They were the ones making the assessment. No one ever came to me and said, we should shut down our compound in Benghazi.
I'm not saying shut it down. I'm saying protect it.
Well,
I'm not saying shut it down. I'm just saying protect it. And when you say security professionals, I'm not trying to be disparaging with anybody, but I don't know who those folks were, but
well, they were people who risked their lives to try to save.
Very professional when it came to protecting people. But let me say this: you said that the mission that you gave Ambassador Stevens was to go in to investigate the situation. Now, if you're going to investigate a situation, it would seem to me like you would have to get out into the country to investigate that. And I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but there were not even enough diplomatic security for him to leave the compound without asking the CIA operatives to assist them. Were you aware of that?
Well, we had an agreement with the CIA to help supplement security and to come to the aid. It was a mutual agreement.
Was that a written agreement?
No, it was not a written agreement, but we are posted with the CIA in many places in the country. Okay. I mean, in the world, and it's important to have a good working relationship, and we did. And unfortunately, despite all the weapons and despite the fortification, 2 CIA contractors died at the CIA annex that night.
Just to follow up on one thing about Ambassador Stevens. You got a lot of emails from Sidney Blumenthal, and you say that Mr. Blumenthal was a friend of yours, and he had your personal email address. You say Chris Stevens was a friend of yours. He asked numerous times for extra protection. Now, if I had been Mr. Stevens, and I think anybody out there, anybody watching this would agree, if I had been Mr. Stevens and I'd had a relationship with you, and I had requested 20 or more times for additional security to protect not only my life, but the people that were there with me, I would have gotten in touch with you some way. I would have let you know that I was in danger and that the situation had deteriorated to a point I needed you to do something. Did he have your personal email?
Congressman, I do not believe that he had my personal email. He had the email and he had the direct line to everybody that he'd worked with for years. He had been posted with officials in the State Department. They had gone through difficult, challenging, dangerous assignments together. He was in constant contact with people. Yes, he and the people working for him asked for more security. Some of those requests were approved, others were not. We're obviously looking to learn what more we could do because it was not only about Benghazi, it was also about the embassy in Tripoli. And I think it's fair to say that, Chris asked for what he and his people requested because he thought that it would be helpful, but he never said to anybody in the State Department, you know what, we just can't keep doing this. We can't stay there. He was in constant contact with, people on my staff, other officials in the State Department, and, I did have an opportunity to talk with him and about the substance of the policy. But with respect to security, he took those requests where they belonged. He took them to the security professionals. And I have to add, Congressman, the diplomatic security professionals are among the best in the world. I would put them up against anybody. And I just cannot allow any comment to be in the record in any way criticizing or disparaging them. They have kept Americans safe in 2 wars and in a lot of other really terrible situations over the last many years. I trusted them with my life. You trust them with yours when you're on CODELs. They deserve better, and they deserve all the support that the Congress can give them because they're doing a really hard job very well.
Well, ma'am, all I can say is that they missed something here, and we lost 4 Americans.